far as I know, the only person ever to put Japanese lyrics to the Beatles song Yesterday, and to do so in the distinctive Kansai dialect, no less, was a guy named Kitaro. He used to belt out his own version when he was taking a bath. Yesterday is 2 days before tomorrow. Today after 2 days to go. This is how it began, as I recall. But I haven't heard it for a long time, and I'm not positive that's how it went. From start to finish, though, Kitaro's lyrics were almost meaningless nonsense that had nothing to do with the original words. That familiar, lovely, melancholy melody paired with the breezy Kansai dialect, which you might call the opposite of pathos, made for a strange combination, a bold denial of anything constructive. At least that's how it sounded to me. At the time, I just listened and shook my head. I was able to laugh it off, but I also read a kind of hidden import in it. I first met Kitaro at a coffee shop near the main gate of Waseda University, where we worked part-time, I in the kitchen and Kitaro as a waiter. We used to talk a lot during downtime in the shop. We were both 20, our birthdays only a week apart. The first time I heard Kitaro sing Yesterday with those crazy lyrics, he was in the bath at his house in Denanchofo, which despite his description was not a shabby house in a shabby neighborhood, but an ordinary house in an ordinary neighborhood, an older house but bigger than my house in a share, not a standout in any way, and incidentally, the car in the driveway was a navy blue Golf, a recent model. Whenever Kitaro came home, he immediately dropped everything and jumped in the bath, and once he was in the tub, he stayed there forever. So I would often lug a little round stool to the adjacent changing room and sit there talking to him through the sliding door that was open an inch or so. It was the only way to avoid listening to his mother drone on and on, mostly complaints about her weird son and how he needed to study more. Those lyrics don't make any sense, I told him. It just sounds like you're making fun of the song Yesterday. Don't be a smartass, I'm not making fun of it. Even if I was, you gotta remember that John loved nonsense and word games, right? But Paul's the one who wrote words and music for Yesterday. You sure about that? Absolutely, I declared. Paul wrote the song and recorded it by himself in the studio with the guitar, and string quartet was added later, but the other Beatles weren't involved at all. They thought it was too wimpy for a Beatles song. Really? I'm not up on that kind of privileged information. It's not privileged information, it's a well-known fact, I said. Who cares? Those are just details, Kitaro's voice said calmly from a cloud of self-esteem. I'm singing in the bath in my own house, not putting out a record or anything. I'm not violating any copyright or bothering a soul. You've got no right to complain. And he launched into the chorus, his voice carrying loud and clear. He hit the high notes especially well. I could hear him lightly splashing the bathwater as an accompaniment. I probably should have sung along to encourage him, but I just couldn't bring myself to. Sitting there, talking through a glass door to keep him company while he soaked in the tub for an hour wasn't all that much fun. But how can you spend so long soaking in the bath? I asked. Doesn't your body get all swollen? When I soak in a bath for a long time, all kind of good ideas come to me, Guitar said. You mean like those lyrics to yesterday? Well, that'd be one of them, Guitar said. Erika stared at the candle flame flickering in the breeze from the AC. I often have the same dream, she said. Aki-kun and I are on a ship, a long journey on a large ship. We're together in a small cabin. It's late at night, and through the porthole we can see the full moon. But that moon is made of pure, transparent ice, and the bottom half of it is sunk in the sea. That looks like the moon, Aki-kun tells me, but it's really made of ice and is only about 8 inches thick. So when the sun comes out in the morning, it all melts. You should get a good look at it now, while you have the chance. I've had this dream so many times. It's a beautiful dream, always the same moon, always 8 inches thick. I'm leaning against Aki-kun, it's just the two of us, the waves lapping gently outside. But every time I wake up, I feel unbearably sad. Erika Kurodani was silent for a time. Then she spoke again. I think how wonderful it would be if Aki-kun and I could continue on that voyage forever. Every night we'd snuggle close and gaze out the porthole at the moon made of ice. Come morning the moon would melt away, and at night it would reappear. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe one night the moon wouldn't be there. It scares me to think that. I get so frightened, it's like I can actually feel my body shrinking. About 2 weeks later, Kitaro quit working at the coffee shop. I say quit, but he just suddenly stopped showing up. He didn't get in touch, didn't mention anything about taking time off. And this was during our busiest season, so the owner was pretty pissed. Kitaro was owed 2 weeks' pay, but he didn't come to pick it up. He simply vanished. I have to say, it hurt me. I thought we were good friends, and it was tough to be cut off so completely like that. I didn't have any other friends in Tokyo. the last 2 days before he disappeared, Kitaro was unusually quiet. He wouldn't say much when I talked to him, and then he went and vanished. I could have called Erika Kurizani to check on his whereabouts, but somehow I couldn't bring myself to. I figured that went on between the two of them was their business, and that it wasn't a healthy thing for me to get any more involved than I was. Somehow I had to get by in the narrow little world I belonged to. After all this happened, for some reason I kept thinking about my ex-girlfriend. Probably I felt something seeing Kitaro and Erika together. I wrote her a long letter apologizing for how I behaved. I could have been a whole lot kinder to her, but I never got a reply. I recognized Erika Kurizani right away. I'd only seen her twice, and 16 years had passed since then, but there was no mistaking her. She was still lovely, with the same lively, animated expression. She was wearing a black lace dress with black high heels and 2 strands of pearls around her slim neck. She remembered me right away too. We were at a wine tasting party at a hotel in Akasaka. It was a black tie event, and I had to put on a dark suit tie for the occasion. She was a rep for the advertising firm that was sponsoring the event and was clearly doing a great job of handling it. It takes too long to get into the reasons that I was there. Erika and I briefly reviewed the lives we'd led over the past 16 years. After college, I was hired by a small publisher, but quit after 3 years and had been a writer ever since. I got married at 27 but didn't have any children yet. Erika was still single. They drive me so hard at work, she joked, that I have no time to get married. She was the first one to bring up the topic of Kitaro. Aki-kun is working as a sushi chef in Denver now, she said. Denver, Colorado, at least according to the postcard he sent me a couple of months ago. Why Denver? I don't know, Erika said. The postcard before that was from Seattle. He was a sushi chef there too. That was about a year ago. He sends me postcards sporadically. Always some silly card with just a couple of lines dashed off. Sometimes he doesn't even write his return address. Sushi chef, I mused, so he never did go to college. She shook her head. At the end of that summer, I think it was, he suddenly announced that he'd had it with studying for the entrance exams, and he went off to cooking school in Osaka. Do you still dream about the moon made of ice? I asked. Her head snapped up and she stared at me very calmly, slowly, and a smile spread across her face. A completely natural, open smile. You remember my dream? She asked. For some reason I do. Even though it's someone else's dream. Dreams are the kind of things you can borrow and lend out, I said. That's a wonderful idea, she said. Someone called her name from behind me. It was time for her to get back to work. I don't have that dream anymore, she said in parting. But I still remember every detail, what I saw, the way I felt. I can't forget it. I probably never will. When I'm driving and the Beatles song Yesterday comes on the radio, I can't help but hear those crazy lyrics, guitar crooned in the bath. And I regret not writing them down. The lyrics were so weird that I remembered them for a while, but gradually my memory started to fade until finally I had nearly forgotten them. All I recall now are fragments, and I'm not even sure if these are actually what guitar sang. As time passes, memory inevitably reconstitutes itself. When I was 20 or so, I tried several times to keep a diary, but I just couldn't do it. So many things were happening around me back then that I could barely keep up with them, let alone stand still and write them all down in a notebook. And most of the things weren't the kind that made me think, oh, I've got to write this down. It was all I could do to open my eyes in the strong hand wind, catch my breath and forge ahead. But oddly enough, I remember guitar so well. We were friends for just a few months, yet every time I hear Yesterday, scenes and conversations with him well up in my mind. The two of us talking while he soaked in the bath at his home in Denenchofu, talking about the ancient tigers, baiting order, how troublesome certain aspects of sex could be, how mind-numbingly boring it was to study for the entrance exams, how emotionally rich Kansai dialect was. And I remember this strange date with Erika and with Erika over the candlelit table at the Italian restaurant confessed. It feels as though these things happened just yesterday. Music has that power to revive memories, sometimes so intensely that they hurt. But when I look back at myself at age 20, what I remember most is being alone and lonely. I had no girlfriend to warm my body or my soul, no friends I could open up to, no clue what I should do every day, no vision for the future. For the most part, I remained hidden away, deep within myself. Sometimes I'd go a week without talking to anybody. That kind of life continued for a year, a long, long year. Whether this period was a cold winter that left valuable growth rings inside me, I can't really say. At the time I felt as if every night I, too, were gazing out a porthole at a moon made of ice, a transparent 8-inch thick frozen moon, but I watched that moon alone, unable to share its cold beauty with anyone. Yesterday is 2 days before tomorrow, the day after 2 days ago.